To dive a little bit deeper in Zero Copy Connector of ServiceNow as part of Workflow Data Fabric. In previous video, I was showing how to make a connection to a BigQuery, to Google BigQuery to retrieve data from BigQuery. I've put video out there for Databricks, maybe Snowflake too. The concept exactly the same for all those data platforms, the way ServiceNow connects to those platforms. So I'm not gonna re-explain how I established the connection to BigQuery, but I just want to show you that there is data asset and there is table that has been created in ServiceNow. Here's a data fabric table that I created called part in for part inventory, and it's mapped to a table in BigQuery. If I go in BigQuery and there is and click preview, you'll see that's a data model, the schema, and the data in that table with a 100,000 record. Just dummy data for testing. So I wanted to explain how that works. Like when you start leveraging that table, for example, here I'm opening the list view, or I could be looking up that list from a flow, from a glide record query in a business rule in a script. The concept will be the same. Every time we query that table, at the end of the day, that glide record query is kind of transformed into an SQL query, and then it gets pushed down to the data platform to connect to that data platform using a JDBC connection, pushing and that SQL query and retrieve the output of that query. So as I'm loading this table, this list view, this data is not sitting in ServiceNow. I'm in ServiceNow, right? But I'm querying that part inventory data fabric table. Every time I'm moving from one page to another or adding a filter and running the query, it's gonna create an SQL query with the right SQL statement and push it down to BigQuery to retrieve the data basically on demand. So if I go in BigQuery, there is a way in BigQuery in the Job Explorer here to see those SQL queries. So if you really want to understand what's going on behind the scene. Now I think we can see it. So it's 10:48 on my computer. I can see logs. Obviously I've clicked on that table. I've went to the next page from ServiceNow. So let's see if I can refresh again and see more data. I think this corresponds to me loading the list view in ServiceNow. So I can see job in BigQuery directly. So I'm gonna take this one. There's probably a better way to kind of filter things out. This one took a long time, I think, to execute. So let's see if I can scroll down. Execution detail. Go in the input there. There's a bunch of data. That was the input. Let's see if I can get some kind of output. There should be some output at some point. Yeah, output. If I scroll down and expand this at the bottom, okay. This will help me explain to you the concept. See here, there is basically a select statement from that table with offset 100 to 200, where we display here, because I'm on the list view, I have all the columns, right? So the SQL query has been generated based on that. And so that's just a big select statement in SQL being generated by ServiceNow and pushed down to BigQuery. And you can see it you can see the actual query there, the time it takes to execute, and so on and so on, right? So the slot time consumed and everything. So good to understand the performance, what's going on when you do something in ServiceNow using data fabric table. Now you know it's pushing down some SQL query, and this is not your instance connecting directly to data fabric. To BigQuery in that example. We're using in our data center a federated SQL federated query engine that leverages an open source product called Trino, Trino. And that component Trino, this is a component that's connecting to Google Cloud or Snowflake or Databricks, right? So that's an additional component sitting outside of your instance that's pushing that SQL query, retrieving the data, and communicating back to the instance. Notice the offset. This corresponds to when I move here to the next page. Obviously, there's 100,000 records, but when I open a list view, the SQL query is not gonna be generated in a way that we return 100,000 records. It's just gonna show the 100 record because we're using the offset here page. The page is configured to display 100 records. So every time I click next, it's gonna regenerate an SQL query, use that number as an offset, as you could see here, 100 offset to 200. So every time I'm moving, it should generate a new SQL query. So we can do a quick test, right? If I think I click next, now I'm 401 to 500. If I go back, and I'm not the best at BigQuery, I'm not a BigQuery expert, so bear with me a minute. I'm gonna see if I have a record for 1051 on my computer. So one of those two jobs correspond to me clicking on the ServiceNow side, right? And if I go in execution detail, I can see in the here offset 300 now, because we moved to first to the 300 page, and the previous record was probably 200, right? So that's how that works, the offset. Every time you move to the next page on the list view. Or if you filter out, for example, we could make a filter that says part, let's say model compatibility of a part is, I'm gonna just put something that on the screen. Let's say you're doing a report in ServiceNow, nice dashboard and report leveraging the data fabric table, and they will have some filtering there. Every time you open the report, it's gonna push down the query, and based on your condition in your report, it's modifying the SQL query. So now it's filtered. Simple example, right? I like to keep things simple, but if I refresh the screen here, it's 1053 in my computer. I should see, I'm probably gonna refresh again. This is probably not the request. It's 1053, so it says 1051, so I may have to wait a second. Yeah, now you have 52, so okay, now I know it's gonna be one of those. And you see it's a JDBC job, so it's Trino basically connecting to the database remotely. So yeah, I can click here, and now you can see the request has changed, right? Now we have a where equal with exactly what I was configuring in ServiceNow. So now you have it, right? You understand exactly how that works. You manipulate your table in ServiceNow, your data fabric table in ServiceNow, like it is normal ServiceNow table, but under the cover, you can see that as you're filtering and navigating through that data fabric table, there is SQL queries being pushed down to those BigQuery or other data platform, and it goes from a component in ServiceNow in our data center called the SQL federated query engine, but technically it's leveraging the Trino technology. So I hope that makes sense. From this, you can slice and dice, right? This will apply for when you open a list view, but same thing if you wanted to group things or create some pie chart and things like that, right? If you're creating some dashboard with that data, the same concept applies. Because at the end of the day, you're putting some data source and filtering. Here, I can save this, and we should see the filtering there, the group by happening and things like that. So if I refresh Job Explorer in Google Cloud, there's a lag. I mean, it takes a bit of a time. Let's see. Just have to wait a minute. Yeah, here you go. So there's like, here we can see I was slicing, dicing things. There's a few JDBC job. So every time it's Trino pushing down the data. So if I click there, I go in execution detail. This one may have nothing, pick the wrong one. Let's see. Can take the first one. Here we go, boom. See, so now we have the group by statement. Right, group by the model compatibility with the where clause. So that's how this works. Now you know kind of how things works in the backend. I hope that that's helpful. I don't know if you've seen this before. Normally we don't really show those plumbing and backend stuff, but I think it's important for you to understand how that works. So thank you for listening. Bye.